Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. This is More to the Story with Molly White. My name is Mary Browning, and I am going to be mainly the host today, even though Molly is the main host, because she is going to be the guest today. We're interviewing her today. So, can we bring Molly in for a minute? And then I've got a couple other announcements. Or maybe before we bring Molly, there she is.
I
Hello,
am.
Molly.
Hi, Mary.
Hello there. Your screen is a little blurry. I don't know what that's about, but
Hmm. I don't know
maybe.
either.
But I do want to mention that we want to thank Dr. Stephen Hotze of Health and Wellness Center, and he is a great guy, and he is our sponsor. So we're thankful to him, and we thank you, Dr. Hotze. See him if you have any problems when you're in Texas. And we do want to say today that our subject matter will contain information about abortion. So if you're listening and there are children near, we'd like you to take some precaution that they don't hear all of the content of what we'll be talking about today. And if you find yourself getting triggered, just see that as an invitation to step into another level of healing. We'll have opportunities for healing at dot at operationoutcry.org, and you can contact the H3 helpline, and they will also help you connect with healing resources. So thank you. So welcome, Molly.
Well, thank you, Mary. I'm so glad to be your guest today.
Yes, this is exciting. So you've had quite an interesting life, and one of the things that we do want the people to know about you, Molly, is your story. So before we tell all the things that are interesting about you, well, let me just give a little primer. Molly has written a book. She has organized and been an advocate at the UN. She ran for representative and won and served as a representative in the legislature in Texas. And she has been part of Operation Outcry for many, many years and sees the value of the testimony. And she wanted us to think of today as how God brings purpose from pain, which also has a connection with her book. So, okay, Molly, can you tell us about your experience of abortion? How did that happen for you?
Well, thank you, Mary. Yeah. Like many other women, I was in my very early 20s and found out I was pregnant. And I went to a medical clinic in the little town that I lived in to have a pregnancy test ran. And I spoke to a doctor, they ran the test, and when he came back into the examining room, he came over to me. I was sitting on the end of the table there, and he said, "You are right, you are pregnant." And he came over and patted me on the knee. He said, "But don't worry about a thing. You can have an abortion. It's safe and it's legal, and you'll get your life all back together again." And then he wrote a name and phone number down of an abortion clinic on a prescription pad, ripped it off, gave it to me, and that was kind of the end of our discussion. And so, at that moment, Mary, this was in the very early 80s, and I had really no idea what abortion was. I never talked about it. We never knew anyone who had an abortion. It just wasn't a word in my vocabulary or in my world even. And but when this doctor introduced that to me, it was like, oh, well, if a medical doctor prescribed it, said it was something that was okay, maybe it's okay and it's not dangerous, it's not a baby yet. And so, I was thinking about these things as I was driving home. And I was also thinking, well, if it's legal, certainly I can't, my baby's not formed yet, you know, and it's got to be so early that it's not even formed yet. And like a lot of us, we didn't even know anything about fetal development. And then
Right.
I started thinking, well, this is ways that I could avoid shaming my parents. And so I toyed with the idea. And then I did call the phone number of an abortion clinic in Austin, Texas. And they, hurried and made me an appointment to come in within a couple of days, I think. And so, I had a friend that drove me there. And on the way, I don't think we really even talked. I don't remember having a conversation with him, but I had a lot of internal strife, and looking back, it was really my heart was arguing with my brain. And I guess you could say it was maternal instinct, really. And so, my brain was saying all of these things, but my heart was tugging at me. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm having this conflict. So when I get to the abortion clinic, I'm going to ask important questions before I make up my mind, right?
Mhm,
It's just
mhm.
like you would talk to any medical facility. And so when I got there and checked in, I asked the woman behind the desk, you know, um, you know, I'm probably about 8 weeks pregnant. What fetal development stage is my baby in? She goes, oh, it's not even a baby. She took a pencil, put a little dot on a piece of paper. She goes, it's no bigger than that little dot. And I said, oh, okay. So it kind of confirmed with what I was thinking. If it's legal, it can't be a baby yet. And then I asked her if there was any risks involved with the procedure. Oh, no, it's perfectly safe. I said, well, is there any risk involved after the procedure? Anything? Oh, no, it's going to be like getting your period back and your life will be all back to normal again. And so hesitantly, and they knew I was conflicted, I think, because they got me back there right away. I never sat down in the waiting room.
Oh,
They just took me right back.
oh.
And then they just go through, I don't know, it was all a blur about what type of abortion, and I'm sure it was within 15 minutes I was on a table. And so there was no anesthesia, and I the doctor came in. I didn't know anything about him. He never spoke to me, never looked at me, just went back, and it was horrible. It was the most painful, excruciatingly painful procedure I've ever endured in my whole life. But it was tearing at my heart too. I think it was destroying me, as not only physically but emotionally as well. And so, afterwards they take you in a little room, juice and crackers, and looking now, we know why they take you into the recovery room. They want to make sure they got all of the pregnancy. And
So what you're saying, somebody was in the back kind of pulling the pieces together
yeah, that's what
and
they do.
counting?
That's what they
Hmm.
do, isn't it, Mary? Just to make
Yes.
sure they have the whole baby.
Hmm.
And so then they escorted me out into the alley, the back alley of this abortion clinic, and where the trash cans were. It was dark, it was smelly. I was in shock, I was traumatized, I was bleeding profusely, I was cramping, I was overcome emotionally, and I mean, it was just an incredibly traumatizing experience. But I did swear that I would never do that again. And so, afterwards, go ahead.
Before you go further, I want to pause because I've heard part of your story before, but it's interesting to me. You said when you first went to your doctor, and he wrote the abortionist's name and number on a prescription pad, like he gave you a prescription for an abortion.
Yeah,
And then when you went there and the doctor came in, he didn't even talk to you. The abortionist didn't even have any conversation with you.
not at all.
That's yeah. So
Not at all. Not a hello, not a,
mhm.
you know, how are you doing? Any questions? I'll tell you what's
No
going to go on.
explanation.
I'm going to tell you what's going to go on. Nothing. Are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, nothing. And so it's not
So
like a
no,
doctor patient relationship.
right.
Yeah.
That's kind of a farce, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've
Mhm.
never met a woman who had a doctor-patient relationship with her abortionist. But anyway, so I was real traumatized. I started drinking more. I was doing a little bit, but started drinking more. Started being very careless with drugs. Anything anybody offered to me, I'd take. And it was just looking back. I was trying to run from that memory. I was trying to run from the pain or numb the pain. But inside, I just felt like I had to have another baby, which I'm not going to go into that a whole lot, but I did on purpose get pregnant again, and that I had pregnancy loss there. So now I'm reeling from the abortion trauma and the loss of that child. Then I carried triplets, lost two of those babies. That was another trauma. So now I'm a very dysfunctional, traumatized, hurt, wounded mother, and trying to, raise this beautiful little boy that I adored. I was crazy about, but I was so conflicted. I was I was hurting so bad, and then trying to be a good mother, and it was just a lot of conflict up and down. So a couple years later,
So
go
just
ahead.
to be sure our listeners understand, so you got pregnant and had an abortion where you were really traumatized. Then you got pregnant again, and that baby did not survive. That was this.
I
Did
had
you have a
yeah,
miscarriage?
yeah, no, I had triplets, and two of them were stillborn.
Okay.
That's
So
another
then you
pregnancy loss, another trauma.
Okay, so you
Hmm.
had the first trauma was the abortion. The next was two stillborn out of triplets. Two out of three of those little babies were stillborn. So you've had three pregnancy losses, and then you had the one triplet that was a little boy. Okay, all
Yeah,
right. Just
yeah.
want to be sure I understood. Thank you.
And he really saved my life, to tell you the truth. But now, I've got these pregnancy losses, and but I do want to throw in there real quick that losing, as traumatizing and as painful and shocking as it was to lose two of those triplets, I was able to heal better from that because we had a funeral, we had a memorial service.
Mhm.
You go through the natural process of grieving, but yet I never did that with my abortion. So that grief was still there, unresolved. And so a couple years later, I was dating a guy, and we get pregnant, and he didn't want anything to do with the baby. It was kind of, you know, wash your hands of it, his hands of it, and I succumbed to a lot of pressure from family members. How can you raise another baby by another father, and we're not going to help you, and this kind of stuff, and I just felt trapped, and all of the abortion decisions were made by someone else. And then when the doctor, and he did a 2-day procedure on me when I know that I was in my early first trimester, probably not even further than 8 weeks along. But looking back, he did a second trimester abortion on me, where he dilated my cervix first. He might have done a DNC, but when he inserted the laminera into my cervix, um, he um, left the room, and then I just lost it. I had a complete hysterical meltdown in that examining room. And the nurse heard me. She came back in. What's the matter? Calm down. And I said, you get him back in here. I don't want to have this abortion. I never wanted to have this abortion. I just buried two babies. You know, I just can't do this. Emotionally, I can't do this. Well, he comes back in and convinces me that if he removes the laminera, then it could damage my cervix and I could lose the baby. So now I'm feeling despair. I don't have nobody there helping me. And so had a miserable night, went back the next day, told him again I didn't want to do this, same things that I said to him before. He convinced me that I had to now or I'd miscarry because I was already dilated. And went through the procedure, and I left the clinic that day. Really, Mary, I was a walking dead woman. I mean, if you want to know what a zombie is, you know, it's someone who just completely shuts off emotionally and mentally just to survive, just to cope, just to get through life. And I was like that for a long time. And so so I don't know. I suffered with that for a long time, still continued. The drinking still continued. Um, the drugs, you know, of course, I was still trying to raise my baby and be a good mother to him, but I was still just in a bad place. One minute I'm just, holding him and just so close to him. Next minute I'm running away. And that lasted for many years, really. Probably a good 13 years. I remarried, had a wonderful husband, trying to have a good life, suffering from depression more and more and more. And then, long story short, I ended up volunteering at a pregnancy resource center. They introduced me to the idea of abortion recovery, and I didn't think I needed it. I'd become a Christian. I was forgiven, but the Holy Spirit had something different for me, and He really pressured me into going. And I was thinking, okay, I'll go just to learn, to see how abortion might hurt some women, because I'm fine, and maybe I can help some poor wretch, who has a problem
Uh,
with abortion.
uh-huh,
That was my denial.
uh-huh.
That was my denial.
Abortion might hurt, but it did, but I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine. I mean, I'm forgiven and I'm okay.
Mhm.
But boy, do you come undone during an abortion recovery program, don't you? I mean,
Yes, you do.
the
In a good
memories
way.
come
I mean, it's a
back,
good way.
the pain, the flood of grief, they deal with everything. And so I did, went through the abortion recovery. It was very tremendously helpful. It's really set me on a journey of healing. And I didn't do anything for about 10 years, raised my family and helped my husband with his business. And then on July 24th, 2001, I was sitting on my front porch. I just graduated from college. I went back to college, finished college, got a degree in counseling, and I was um, having my coffee on the front porch like I did every morning, reading the Bible, and I read Proverbs 24:11. So I've already read through Proverbs in May, June. Now it's July 24th. I read Proverbs 24, and when I read verse 11, it said, "Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter. But if you say to me, you don't know what I mean, don't I who perceive your heart know what you know? And will I not hold you into account?" And it
Mm.
was kind of like, it was kind of like this sonic boom come bursting out of the sky in this, I don't know if you've ever been around an explosion, but you get this boom, just hits you right in the chest. And I felt that, and I just pushed me back in my rocking chair. And I knew that God had just spoken to me, and God had just called me to do something that um, that I had no idea what He wanted me to do. And hold on a second, I got to do this. And so I was just like, oh geez, God just spoke to me. And now I'm in turmoil about, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And that lasted for a couple of weeks. And I'm praying, and I'm travailing, and I'm in a Bible study with some friends, and I told them about it, and I'm like, what do you want, Lord? What do you want from me to do? And so I just, like, one day I surrendered myself. I was in uh, a friend's house, and I was in her kitchen. I said, okay, God, here I am. Here I am. I'll go where you want me to go. I'll do what you want me to do. I'll speak what you want me to speak. I'm yours. And boy, Mary, that was life changing. Life changing.
Oh. And so you have spoken and done things in lots of different places. And I know I forgot to mention this at the top of our podcast, but we think this could be part one and part two. So we're in part one right now. But for today, do you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. Well,
So,
this was 10 years in making. uh,
okay.
Through a lot of my experiences, I got involved with Operation Outcry in 2001, probably August or something of 2001.
Okay. Was
And
that then after that experience on the porch?
yes, that
Then
was
you got,
July.
okay.
That was July 24th, 2001. And then I heard Alan Parker speak on the radio about, if you've been hurt by abortion, then we would love to have an affidavit at the time, declaration. We'd like to hear from you, because we're taking this case back to the Supreme Court, with Norma McCorvey, Sandra Kano. And so, boy, I needed to get in touch with him. And so I did submit my application with him, and ended up flying to Washington D.C. with him and my daughter the following month,
Oh, wow.
to share.
August, September, October?
Well, it was July, and then I met
July.
August. I met Alan in August, and then September. By September the 1st. No, let me see. We were there. Yeah, we were there September 4th and 5th, I believe, and then that was like a week before 9/11. Yeah,
I wasn't even thinking about
a week
911.
before
Wow.
9/11, and
9/11.
there's a big story to that, but we won't go into it right now. But anyway, through the years of God opening doors for me and using my testimony, and I've co-hosted Faces of Abortion television show. I co-hosted a documentary, Crossroads. I've been in documentaries. I've been on news media. So I mean, wherever God opened a door and called me to go, I did go. And I just want to let our viewers know that, hey, when God calls you to do something, you don't have to be prepared. you don't have you don't have to be experienced in that field. You just have to be willing to walk through that door. And for me, through all these years of going through these doors, not prepared, not knowing, just being obedient, boy, God will use you in such a mighty way. He'll provide everything that you need, and then you'll learn and you'll grow, and then he'll open another door for you, and you use those previous experiences, sometimes not, but just like opening the door for at the UN and Operation Outcry, and we can talk more about that later. But because of all those experiences and my experiences, now being in the pro-life movement for 24 years, um, many years ago, God had called me to write a book, and I kept putting it off, thinking, I can't write a book. I don't even read for pleasure. I do read all the time, but I don't read for pleasure. And so I just had this mental block. Well, long story short, it took about 10 years. And when I left office, serving as a state representative, it was the perfect time for me to start writing my book. And so it is here. I don't know if my screen is set up to, let me see. Trying to
If
get
you move it a little bit more, maybe to
trying
your
to get
right.
the glare of
There
it.
we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a glare, but it's called Deceived. God brought purpose from my pain. And that should be an encouragement, and want it to be encouragement for you listeners, that, you know, no matter what kind of trauma you might have experienced, if you allow God to heal you from that, and especially abortion, that's our program, then He can use that in such a mighty way that would just blow your mind. And it's blown mine. So the book is an in-depth story about my abortion, and then my healing journey. I don't really go into the steps of healing, but I do cover forgiveness, because that's huge. You have to seek God's forgiveness. You have to forgive all of those that were involved in
Mhm.
that decision, and then you have to forgive yourself. Mary, I was mentored by a lady in my early Christian life that really did not believe in self forgiveness. She thought that was very unchristlike. It was blasphemous,
Mhm.
and really, we're not forgiving ourselves from sin. We're forgiving ourselves for sinning, or for hurting other people, for doing things that
Okay.
hurt us.
Mhm.
Because I had a lot of self hatred still. I was very angry at myself. I hurt a lot of people in my hurt, in my woundedness. And so I forgave myself for all of those things that betrayed me as a person and as a woman. And boy, that was the cream of the cake, really. I mean, or of the crop. But so I write about the forgiveness in here, and I write about how you can get involved and the importance of getting involved. And then I give you some good ideas of what you can do and where you can go. And then I end, talking about abortion recovery, about Operation Outcry. And, I feel it's an easy to read book. Well, I don't know about easy to read. It's a quick read, you know.
Yes.
Uh, and so I finally got it done. And this is really one of 5 books. I just haven't started on the others
And the others?
because it's
Okay.
not easy to write. First of all, I mean, I'm not a writer, but I have a lot of things to say, and I have a lot of experiences that I feel like would be encouraging to other people to say, hey, they can use, I'm a nobody, Molly, I'm a really a nobody in the world. But God has really used me in mighty ways and opened up so many opportunities and shown himself to be so powerful, so mighty, so loving, so nurturing, so caring. I
Yes.
mean, just would love to share that.
Molly, can you tell our listeners how to get a hold of your book?
Oh, sure. It is available on Amazon.com, Amazon. So it's Deceived, God Brought Purpose from My Pain. And
Okay.
it's real affordable. And if you do read it and you do order it from Amazon, I'd appreciate your feedback as well. That kind of helps with book promotion and stuff. So that would
Oh,
be great. But I think for me, I wrote it in a way that educates the uninformed, comforts those who are mourning, leads the lost to Christ, and then activates people into God's calling. That was my intention for the book.
oh, wow. It's power packed then. Tell our listeners a little bit about what kind of recovery did you go through? What kind of programs did you
Well, the
just in
first
terms of,
one, I think, if I remember, this was back in 1992 when I went through abortion recovery. And I think it was called Healing the Hurts of Abortion. And it was written by a pastor in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
okay.
And so, from what I understand, it was the first one ever put out there. And so that was the beginning. But then I was introduced to Forgiven and Set Free. So I went through Forgiven and Set Free. And then
Okay.
I've led several groups through Forgiven and Set Free. Several women, well, many women, and I've been through. I think Surrendering the Secret. The only one I haven't gone through is Rachel's Vineyard, and really that's just timing issue. I think it's timing and location issue. Mhm.
And Molly, not everybody needs to go through all the different ones, but did you find each one helpful?
Oh, definitely, definitely. It and God, we're abortion hurts us like we're like we're an onion, and there's so many layers of trauma, so many
Mhm.
layers of emotional consequences, I guess, that it's you can't get to all of them in one either
Wow.
weekend
Mhm.
retreat or a one-time Bible study. But
Okay.
I will say this, from the past 24 years, 25 years that I've been doing this and sharing my story, God heals me on a deeper level, or something
Mhm.
comes out, a revelation comes out that is very healing and very life changing. So it's a process, you know.
Well, and I know we're going to have a part two, but I do want to ask you then, what in your experience fueled your passion to be the host of this podcast, More to the Story?
Well, because there is more to the story, isn't there, Mary? I mean, when you and I really talked about this podcast, our was our goal, I guess, is like our question was, how do we reach women? How do we reach people who are only getting part of the abortion propaganda, the abortion ideology? They're only being told a part, and it's all deceiving. It's all based on deception. And so we came up with more to the story because we want listeners to know that there's always more to the story than what you're being told through the media and through the abortion industry propaganda. And it's the more to the story that you need to know to help you make better decisions in your life, how to avoid the trauma that Mary and myself and millions of other women have experienced through abortion, and to educate those people around you, and to minister and encourage maybe pregnant women who need encouragement and support.
Well, Molly, thank you for telling us this part of your story so far. We'll be signing off, and then we'll also be having a part two. But we just want the listeners today to be inspired by what you've heard from Molly. So she had some bad experiences early on. She got healing and help. She has lent her voice to the cause then to make sure people know the more to the story that there is in abortion. So Molly, just on behalf of myself and other women who need to hear this, I just want to thank you for the years that you have dedicated. I thank you for your obedience from that day on the porch when you read those words and they hit you like what did you call it? Like a boom,
like a sonic boom,
like an explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did send you on a trajectory of
Yeah.
making sure you were loaning your voice so that people would know the rest of the story or the more to the story. So thank you so much. And thank you for listening today. Thank you for watching, and join us again for part two. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.